Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to what is already the second session of CirculariTV. Now, in this session, we will discuss the role of financing in ensuring a just transition for cities in their road to circularity. Joining me once again in this session is our trusted visual artist, Femke van Voorthuizen. She is in her art corner, and she will be drawing on the basis of what is being discussed during this session. So keep an eye out for Femke during our conversations. And to our viewers at home, we really want to encourage you to spread the message and join the conversation online. You can do so by using the hashtags that are appearing on your screen right now. And please do tag us in your tweets via @WCEF+Climate. Now, with that being said, let's go over to our incredible lineup of speakers for this second session of CirculariTV, because I am honored to be joined by, first off, Mr. Ambroise Fayolle, who is the Vice President of the European Investment Bank. Mr. Fayolle focuses on circular economies and climate action and is an expert on relations with other financial institutions. Mr. Fayolle, we're very happy to have you here in the session with us.
Yes. Very pleased to be with you.
Thank you so much. And going on to our second guest, who I want to also give a very warm welcome, is Mr. Arno Bonte. Mr. Bonte, you are the Vice Mayor for Sustainability, Clean Air and Energy Transition for the city of Rotterdam. We're very happy to have you with us in this session as well.
Pleasure to be here.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, actually, we are going to start with a video from your city, Mr. Bonte, the city of Rotterdam, which shows us a great example of circularity in practice.
Reduce, reuse, and recycle. We make it happen in Rotterdam. We have the ambition to make Rotterdam 100% circular. The city is becoming a living laboratory where we experiment, pioneer, and assure success. We are positioning the city and our port as a circular hotspot and a front-runner in circular economies. With a circular economy, we envision an economy where we, through smart design and conscious behavior, use the minimal amount of raw materials to produce long-lasting and recyclable products. The road towards the circular economy is not just paved with good intentions, we are actively chasing our goals. Because Rotterdam has a history of thinking differently. From rebuilding our city centre to redesigning our skyline with cutting-edge modern architecture, we are a city that's used to rethinking our perspective. Adding the other re's to that list comes naturally, and striving to reduce, reuse and recycle defines the way of thinking in our city and our port. Applying these principles, we work with entrepreneurs and social organizations to reduce the amount of waste produced and to make new raw materials out of waste. That's the circular economy, the Rotterdam way, by being bold and working together. Because only through collaboration and cooperation can we acquire new knowledge.
Wow, Mr. Bonte, I must say that is an incredible video and great examples of circularity in practice in Rotterdam. And maybe if we start with what we just saw, at the very core of this, what is the added value of circular practices for a city like Rotterdam?
Yeah, as you saw in the video, there are a lot of initiatives already there. Circular initiatives like startups, but also bigger companies who are starting to work in a circular way. And what we do, you saw one of the initiatives, these two young guys, they work for a startup company that is called Fruit Ladder. Mm-hmm. And while they were still in university, they came up with an idea. They thought there's a lot of fruit being wasted every week at the open air market. And what if we could find a new purpose for that? And that's what they did. They managed to change this fruit waste into a leather-like material. And they managed to make books and bags and shoes out of this leather. And this kind of companies are the companies we need in Rotterdam. We support, we provide them with working space, but also support them financially if needed, because these are the companies of the future. And these are also the jobs of the future.
Yeah, and amazing fruit ladders and books that can be made in such a creative way. Turning to you, Mr. Fayolle, hearing this, do you recognize these benefits of circularity that Mr. Bonte mentioned?
Well, I must say that what we have seen in the video is absolutely great, and this is indeed a great circular example. So circular practices can also involve, for example, new options to share and lease bikes, vehicles, tools, etc., rather than buying them. That's something that is key to have efficient public transport that would reduce the need for individual cars and thereby freeing up roads and parking spaces. So public and other buildings would also be planned for sharing, and thanks to design flexibility could easily be repurposed in response to changing needs. Citizens may also be able to buy vegetables and fruits produced in local urban farms with closed organic loops, thereby reducing the impacts of long transports. That's something that we are very much attached at the EIB, actually. So the circular transition needs to target many different sectors and stakeholders.
Yeah, clear indeed. And Mr. Bonte, we talked in a previous session about the link between circularity and climate change. But I'm curious, very concretely, what is the added value for the citizens in your city?
Yeah, first and foremost, of course, circular companies, sustainable companies, create more jobs. And if we change now, we make sure that our economy is also competitive in the future. But there is a value that is much more important for our citizens, and that is in making our society more circular, in accomplishing also the climate goals in a city like Rotterdam. We also create a more healthy environment, a better place for people, a better city for people to live in.
Yeah, nicely said indeed. And turning back to you, Mr. Fayolle, the European Investment Bank has developed a circular economy guide for cities in applying circular solutions. What are some of the best practices mentioned in there?
Well, actually, I agree with what Mr. Bonte just said. And this is completely in line with the 15 steps guide that you mentioned, and that it concludes that while linear cities often struggle with congestion, pollution, etc., circular cities would not only be regenerative, but would also more resilient, more cleaner, more livable. Sharing and buying locally also builds community, if I may say so. As the mayor said, this also creates jobs, and that's important.
Yeah, thank you so much. And indeed, we've seen quite some benefits to the circular practices in cities, but let's dive a bit deeper as well into the barriers that some cities may face in scaling up circularity. And to guide us through that discussion, we have Mrs. Burcu Tuncer, who is the head of circular development at the Local Governments for Sustainability Network, or ICLEI for short, and she is here to pose a couple of questions.
Good afternoon, Ms. Yagkoubi, Vice Mayor Mr. Bonte, Vice President Mr. Fayolle. Many thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. In the ICLEI network, there is growing interest in the potential role of circular economy interventions for climate neutrality, biodiversity protection, and job creation. On our recently launched platform, ICLEI Circulars, leading member cities exchange on their success stories, but also challenges. Here is one challenge that has approached from the Southeast Asia region of our network. Bogor City, located in the south of Jakarta, on Java Island in Indonesia, is exploring how to set up mechanisms that can encourage circular economy practices among small businesses in local villages. Our challenge is to find technical assistance and financing for these small ventures and develop local government-led circular business support programs. Mr. Fayolle, what would be EIB's advice on this? Does EIB have any mechanisms to finance such activities? And Mr. Bonte, has Rotterdam experience with developing support mechanisms for circular business ventures? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mrs. Tuncer. Mr. Fayolle, if I can start with you, what is your view in regards to this question?
Well, actually, the example of Indonesia is extremely interesting, and this is an example and a country on which we work quite actively. So we know that Indonesia has committed to reducing, in particular, plastic discharge to oceans. and seeking circular solutions to such plastic pollution is a very good solution. Here, SMEs can play an important role in the collection and recycling of plastics. Local governments can support SMEs in such efforts. And what we can say is they should align the activities with the formal waste management system, and they could help also in creating demand for recycled plastics. So EIB, what we are doing, that was the question, is actively discussing with our partners in what we call the Clean Ocean Initiative, and together with the ADB, the Asian Development Bank, under our Clean and Sustainable Ocean Partnership, how to support Indonesians in their efforts to reduce ocean plastic discharge through technical assistance. That's something that is in particular important, and also finance. And such support will have a particular focus on seeking circular solutions to the plastic pollution where SMEs will play a big and important role.
Yes, thank you so much indeed. And Mr. Bonte, turning to you, the city of Rotterdam is also part of the ICLEI network. Do you have any experience with developing mechanisms to support circular business initiatives?
We do. What is the cornerstone in our policy is the Rotterdam Climate Agreement. And the Rotterdam Climate Agreement not only focuses on fighting the climate crisis, but also to make the city more circular and to provide more clean air in the city. And this climate agreement is made by more than 100 companies and organizations, and of course also the civilians of Rotterdam. So we have identified more than 50 projects to work on together as a government, as civilians, and also as companies. And I think to have the same focus together and to also focus the finance on these projects is the best approach to start the speed up of the circular economy on the local level.
Yeah, like a catalyzer in a way.
That's right.
Thank you so much. And we have another question from Mrs. Tuncer, so let's have a look.
In sub-Saharan Africa, leading cities of ICLEI circles like Accra, Nairobi, Cape Town see a huge opportunity to support the role of informal economic activities in order to operationalize circular economy principles. As you know, the informal economy in African cities addresses the need of marginalized urban dwellers to have cheaper and quicker access to goods and services. Our member cities are continuously looking into ways of incorporating informal economy into their development plans, including circular economy support actions. Our question is, how can EIB partner with local governments to assist development of these support programs, including innovative financing solutions for informal economy activities? Thank you.
Yes, thank you to Mrs. Tuncer for that question. Mr. Fayolle, if I can start with you, what do you think that EIB can do through financing to stimulate informal economy sectors to be circular as well?
Well, first, I think the key element in assessing the situation, particularly in Africa, is that it is absolutely true that the informal sector can and will play an important role in the circular transition in sub-Saharan Africa. And actually, in our Clean Ocean project identification and preparation technical assistance program, we are therefore looking at ways to support this and to support the formalization, to support further development of informal activities in collection and recycling of, among other plastics. And we can provide financial support to such efforts. We can do that through our traditional intermediation lending, so to lend to banks who can then support smaller companies. But actually, the most important point is to support microfinance institutions. And we do that a lot in Africa because these microfinance institutions are well placed to support SME activities in such replacement and removal of plastic.
Yeah. Very interesting indeed, the microfinancing you mentioned as well. And maybe we can dive a bit deeper into that financial dimension of a circular economy, because you are a key player in that regard, Mr. Fayolle. So maybe I can ask you as well, when we talk about financing circular economy, how can we take into account equity and inclusiveness so that, in other words, we make a just transition?
Well, actually, we put in place last year a very ambitious climate bank roadmap that is going to guide us in the next years in Europe and completely consistent with what we call the Green Deal and the objective of having climate neutrality by 2050. What I would say is it's going to work only if there is a just transition. If those who have to make efforts, those who are going to lose are going to bear more. And that is something that is important inside the European Union. It's extremely important outside of the European Union.
Yeah, indeed. And you mentioned the conditions and the roadmap. How does this play out in practice? What sort of support guidance is there available to cities that face barriers in scaling up their circularity?
Well, actually, there are different kind of barriers to the circular transition, and actually these barriers are often due to a lack of common vision, awareness, and collaboration. So it can also be argued that there is not an even playing field between the line business models, which benefit from not having to shoulder the cost of environmental externalities, for example, and circular models, which aim at reducing such externalities. So the needs have to be addressed at the EU level and at the national level. And we think that cities are not only very good cradles, but also efficient catalysts. Actually, this is the word that you use yourself for the circular transition. Local authorities can prepare a circular roadmap that creates a common vision for the transition and mobilizes relevant stakeholders to contribute to this. They can also use their information channels, regulatory instruments, incentives, public procurement to incentivize and support circular initiatives. And cities can also be circular role models by offering circular services and assets. So I think it is very important, but you have a great example just in front of you today with the city of Rotterdam. There are also other examples. Let me just give you one. In Sweden, they have decided to lower the VAT on repair services. And that has encouraged to the reuse, and that also created new jobs at the same time.
Yeah, indeed. And indeed, you mentioned it, circular role models when it comes to cities. I agree that we have one sitting here right at the table, indeed. Because Mr. Bonte, Rotterdam being a city that is very far in their circular transition, how do you as a city take into account that things are happening in an equitable and just way?
First of all, to include everyone in the process and in the making of this roadmap towards a circular economy. But one thing is also very important. One of the barriers we identified in Rotterdam is that circularity is still seen as something that is very expensive, and for that we need a mind shift among consumers, because maybe sometimes sustainable products are a little bit more expensive, but if you can use them longer in the long term, of course they are cheaper. But we also need a mind shift among entrepreneurs, and we use them, we support them, we advise them, and I'm very glad that also the European Investment Bank helps cities like Rotterdam and also local governments to make a mind shift.
Yes.
Because also for local and national governments, this mind shift is essential to accomplish this circular economy together.
Thank you so much indeed. And thank you for those insights, Mr. Fayolle. Thank you. And Mr. Bonte as well. These were incredible insights, I think, for our viewers to take along with them as well. And this brings us already to the end of the second CirculariTV session. I want to thank my guests, but of course also you, the viewers watching at home. And make sure to join in on the next session at the main studio with my colleague Ikenna, where he will discuss the session on globalizing the circular economy dialogue. And then we hope to see you in the next CirculariTV session.